trying to rectify things. This is Moto 3, and this is the chase group trying to get up. Andre Schmill at the front of this group. Another of the MGB team. I think they've got most of their team up in the action today. Each team fielding 8 riders. I think the only rider I've not seen in the action from MGB is Eros Polly. It's almost as if Van Itterbeek feels more at home on the cobblestones. There are plenty of them in Belgium still. Any of you young amateurs watching this who've ever visited Belgium and ridden an amateur race, you usually find yourself crashing over cobblestones round the back streets of some little Belgium town. The fear that one day all of these cobblestones will be covered over with tarmac doesn't bear thinking about, because the day that happens, Paris-Roubaix will cease to exist. But thankfully, the race more popular than ever, and the areas here, the Nord-Pas-de-Calais, and the area around this section of France, and Roubaix, Valenciennes, Saint-Quentin, all of the towns here willing to try and preserve at least small sections of this bad road to keep this race alive into the next century. The first race in 1896 was won by Fischer. Joseph Fischer of Germany, but in those days they were paced by bicycles. This group is trying to reform at the front. The 20 riders have been spread-eagled a little bit since the puncture to Cipollini, but basically the same names are here. Nobody has crossed the gap from the original 20 riders. And Johan Museo, there he is at the right of our picture, hasn't done too much at all. He's watched every move, he's marshalled the moves well, he's made sure he hasn't been too far off the pace. This is Olaf Ludwig now driving along. It's an awful shame the former East German wasn't able to turn professional until he was almost 30 years of age. He holds the World Cup. He's made such an impression, starting the season as 5th in the world rankings position. But he really would have done so much more had he been able to turn professional around 24, 25 years of age. Now he's driving the train, Ballerini on his wheel. They're trying to split this breakaway up. Ludwig must feel a little bit claustrophobic in there with Ballerini and Johan Museo in that group. 2 riders with the equal qualities of making the long attack or winning the sprint. And the gap is closing down. Van der Poel has not yet rejoined Benjamin Van Itterbeek at the head of affairs. It just goes to show, doesn't it, just how good Van Itterbeek is going here. Still a gap of 12 seconds. Van Itterbeek took the time to look over his shoulder now. He might want to ease off a little bit, because 2 will go better than 1. There's the lone leader, riding as relaxed as he can on top of the... In fact, it looks to me as though he is easing back and waiting for the arrival of Van der Poel. His gears a little bit lower than one would expect over the cobblestones. They tend to ride big gears. They drive over the stones, pick out the best route. Well, the riders will be very relieved the rain hasn't come. It's a bit disappointing for the spectators and indeed the television commentators, because a Paris-Roubaix is always said to be a real Paris-Roubaix when the riders look like coal miners and the water on the road is about 2 or 3 inches deep. End of sector 7 and a second place for Van der Poel out of that section, which will keep him on the leaderboard in the race for the big cobblestone and the first prize in the Kingdom of Bavarian. Van der Poel has been in the thick of the action since this breakaway formed. He was one of the key men that formed the attack of 13 riders that finally swept up Christian Chauvet, and has also blown him away, I'm afraid to say. And now it looks as though Van Itterbeek is going to be joined. There we are, he spotted him, so he'll wait for him, and then he'll find his tempo, and 2 riders could well slip away here. little drink, as so often happens when a rider catches his quarry. A few moments of relaxation before they settle into the serious business now of holding off the remnants of this 20-man breakaway. This has to be one of the most tortuous routes possible to Rouvy from the town of Compiègne. The same towns which have now become synonymous with Paris-Roubaix welcome this race every year. The route more or less settled down, it doesn't change too much at all now, since it's been starting at Compiègne since the mid-80s. And if you ever get the chance, by the way, to come over here and watch Paris-Roubaix, Compiègne is about 80 kilometres, 50 miles north of Paris, and the night before the big professionals roll out of town, there's always a circuit race for amateurs which goes on for a couple of hours, and it's a great evening's entertainment. Edwin van Hooijdonk looking over his shoulder. So many riders over the years call themselves Mr. Paris-Roubaix, but Van Hooijdonk shot into the top line when he finished 5th in this race, one of his first professional races. There's the composition of this new group, but still the original names projected. Herman Frison is the only rider who's joined us here after a hard chase from the back. And Van der Poel just checking over to see, a little group, and that's it. He's assessing who's in it, and he's not going to try and hang out now. Neither is Van Itterbeek as they come together. And there's the men who've joined them. Ludwig Duclos-Lazal, Frison, Van Hooijdonk, Sergeant, Museo and Ballerini. A very neat little group indeed. 9 riders out in front. Well, Cipollini is reported to have abandoned the race. He had his chance today for sure, but he was a victim of a puncture. Ludwig Willems, who was in this breakaway too, he had a very nasty fall and hurt his left shoulder. He also has abandoned, so things haven't gone too well. André Chamil, another MG rider, has also fallen. They were all in the action up here earlier on. They've lost their places because of bad luck, and that's reduced the favourites there, because 3 of the MG boys have gone from this leading group because of bad luck. Museo is still here, so too is Ballerini. And as I said this morning in the French newspaper L'Équipe, it was the journalists who have voted 5 stars for Ballerini as the favourite, along with Museo. That's Herman Frison at the back of Belgium, 105. He is on the same team managed by Jean-Luc Vandenbroek. As we head on to sector 6 on the pavé. Pont Thibault, just 1.5 kilometres this one. Frison sitting at the back, while it's again Van der Poel searching for the points at the front. But Museo has got his wheel now. This quietly spoken man who say he didn't have to be a professional bike rider because his family is reasonably well placed in life. They own a garage. His father was briefly a professional cyclist and found it was a little bit too hard. He didn't want Johan to become a pro bike rider, and Johan promised he'd just give it a try. Well, what a rider he's turned out to be. Now the champion of Belgium, and only a week ago the winner of the Tour of Flanders, and now right in the driving seat here in Paris-Roubaix. Last Belgian to win was Eddie Plankett, and you may well have seen that tape on FCV, that superb finish by a centimetre between Steve Bauer and Eddie Plankett. What a finish that was. Sean Yates, they call him the Animal. What a superb bike rider. Such an unselfish cyclist. That's why he's never won so many cycle races. He's said now to be postponing his retirement this year because he is so impressed with Lance Armstrong, the new rider on the Motorola team, that he wants to stay on one more year and impart all of his experience to Lance and hope that he will go on to be a champion. Again, the cobbles breaking up this group. This is the return of a chase group, which includes Yellow Nidam, and it might well get back, so they're reforming again. What a superb battle this is over the roads here of northern France. The cars, as so often happens, will be trapped between these two groups. The riders won't complain because it'll be a chance to nip through the cars and back up to the leaders. But there really is no of those vehicles can go in Paris-Roubaix when you're on the cobblestones. You can find yourself in a box. They're the leaders. Dvur Kralove driving along there. In third place, I think he is at the moment. What a remarkable rider. The oldest man to win Paris-Roubaix 1 year ago, which ranked him, I think it was 4th in the world, as the 4th oldest winner of a classic race. The oldest is Joop Zoetemelk. And that little group is getting back. So the Word Perfect boys haven't had a great day out today of Jan Ross. New sponsors, Jan anxious that they get a win in a classic race. They're coming up. Capio has done a great ride to get up to this group. Nellison is coming back. The young hope for the future of the Novo My team. Nico Verhoeven is having a great day today. He's been in and out of the lead group as well. And they're on. So again, a big breakaway coming back together in the 91st Paris-Roubaix. So many riders feel they have a chance up here. And Museo, well, he's hardly overdone the power at the front. He's on the lead at the moment, but he's keeping the pace at tempo. He's probably waiting till we come to the last 10 or 15 kilometres, where it seems all of the riders make their move over these past few years. Marc Madio has won twice from the same position. Dvur Kralove has gone there a year ago. And you may remember too, a few years back, when the champion of Belgium, Eric van der Aarde, did a similar move to win the race. And that was back in 1987. If you want some bad luck stories over the last 15 kilometres, well, Sean Kelly, twice a winner of this race, he crashed there and broke his handlebars on the cobblestones. Kelly is having trouble today, the grand old man of world cycling, in his 17th season. His gears have fallen off and is in big trouble at the back of the race. So much luck required. And yet I once remember talking to Roger de Vlaming, the rider they used to call the Giton, the Gypsy, who won this race in 72, 74, 75 and 77. He never had a problem in 11 Paris-Roubaix until he punctured in the 11th event. And then he thought it was time to abandon the race. And there was the composition of this lead group as it's reformed at the front, and the tempo, as you can see, with the coming back of that small group, has eased off a little bit. Time for the big boys to rethink their tactics. Marc Sergeant setting the pace. Now it's Johan Museu, Dvur Kralove. All of France riveted on their seats now, seeing the grand old man come back up into this lead group, when it seemed earlier when they announced he crashed at Troisville with a puncture. It was a long chase too to rejoin the back of the field. When he got there, he found that most of the favourites had gone. Well, you can see the problems if it had been a big bunch coming down these narrow roads. You have to be so strong to ride near the front and stay out of the way of the likely falls and punctures and delays caused in the centre of the main field. And although you now see a projection of a small group of riders, you have to appreciate the strength of these favoured riders to hold their position at the head of affairs just to be in the lead group of the day. It takes an awful lot of hard riding. It's no good riding along in Paris-Roubaix, 40 riders down having a chat waiting for the end. You've got to be strong enough to stay near the front as soon as you arrive on the first stretch of cobblestones at Troisville after some 63 miles covered. Yates has put himself into this breakaway with good solid riding today. He had terrible bad luck last year. He was in the breakaway when he punctured in the forest of Arenberg. He finally came back to finish 13th. It could have been such a better finish for him, for the Motorola team as well. There's the time gap now, back to the next group, 50 seconds. Van Hooijdonk taking a drink. and Van Itterbeek, who's tried one move, sitting now at the back and waiting to see what might come his way. Frédéric Moncassin also sitting there at the back. New team for him this year, and he seems to be riding a much better season. And Van Itterbeek's gone again with the gap at 33 seconds to the next group on the road. But they're not giving him his head this time. That's Olaf Ludwig, who's taken up the chase and got him. And Ludwig just anxious to contain the race. Ludwig, not the great sprinter that perhaps Museu is. He'd be delighted too to see the going of Cipollini earlier. But Ludwig can produce a great sprint when the race has been very, very hard. One of his ambitions when he turned professional was to win the green points jersey in the Tour de France. He's done that now. And he's done it and also been beaten by Johan Museu in a great one-on-one battle the following year for that green jersey as well. Now, Hermann Friesen trying his hand to go away. You see, Friesen not recognised by the leaders as a likely winner, has been given his head, but in Paris-Roubaix it does produce surprise victors. And look at this, Adrie van der Poel is chasing him down again. This man is so strong today. I've never seen Adrie ride so well for a couple of years now. I really thought last year he was finished. 35 kilometres to go, we're in Templerve. About 22 miles. Well, Van der Poel is claiming the cobblestones as his today, determined to win that prize. He's been on the attack ever since the counter-attack moved off in search of Christian Chauvet. "13 riders in the front. And this is Friesen, 250 metres of cobblestones here. Like all Belgians, he rides nicely, relaxed on the handlebars. If any young amateur riders are watching, by the way, when you do ride the cobblestones, you don't allow your hands to rest lightly on the handlebars. If you hit the stones wrong, it'll bounce both of your arms off the handlebars and a nasty crash will result. Believe me, I've seen it happen many times. You hold those handlebars really tightly. Handlebar control shift levers too for the gears as he changes down one. And I've noted too that Van der Poel is using a similar gear shift today, as he would do in cyclocross, of which of course he is a great exponent. Seconds to Van der Poel, only 20 seconds back to the group. 20 seconds is a start. 10 years a professional, Hermann Friesen came out in a big way when he finished third overall in the Tour of Holland, winning a stage. Probably his biggest victory would be a stage in the Tour de France, which came back in 1987, and a win in Ghent-Wevelgem, which is a semi-classic in 1990, and a runner-up spot in the Tour of Flanders back in 1989. But he does like riding Paris-Roubaix. He's finished 7th before. He's a rider they should pay more attention to. 5 sections of pavé left. The race is running down to its big showdown now, and there's still a lot of riders that are going to fancy the chances here. Not least Adrie van der Poel. Although I have to say, he does seem to be pouring out an awful lot of energy and going nowhere. Could be he's going to get up to Friesen. He did it when he chased down Van Itterbeek, and then as we saw, he almost waited for the group to come back in the end. And there's that 7th place I was telling you about. He came in 1989 for Hermann Friesen. And up comes Van der Poel again. A man possessed today. I wonder if father-in-law Raymond Poulidor is watching it. Raymond Poulidor never rode a good Paris-Roubaix. Now again, Van der Poel has chased him down. He's scored points on the cobblestones and he's eased up. Exactly the same as he did when he caught Van Itterbeek. interesting to see now if the gap closes down quickly from the chase group. But normally, if you are interested in staying away, Van der Poel would have sailed straight through on Herman Frison, give him a tap and said, let's go for it. Instead, he's taken his wheel. Now he's starting to go through. Both riders are at the limit, it seems to me, here, because this race has gone so quick today. It's averaging in excess of 42 kilometers an hour, but at times we've seen speeds recorded on the flat roads of up to 57 kilometers an hour. It won't be the fastest race. The record holder, by the way, is Peter Post, the team manager of the Novo My team, and that won't be beaten today. 45 kilometers an hour that was, which is 27 miles an hour. And that day the wind was helping them all the way to the finish. Let's have a look down the road from the helicopter. The helicopter pilot has the best seat in Paris-Roubaix, that's for sure. 45 seconds the gap. As we again dip over the main autoroute, the freeway that runs between Paris, Lille and Brussels. Not to be recommended. Olaf Ludwig, who's brought a new lease of life to the German Telekom team this year. A team that struggled to gain recognition, but now they've got Olaf Ludwig on the squad. Well, he really is the man to win them the classics. Van Hooydonk, there he is having his lunch. Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle, last year's winner, must be feeling very pleased with his ride so far today. You can see the holes in his shorts because of the crash he had at the start of the cobblestone. This looks like Dirk de Wolf coming up. It is Marc Sergeant. Massimo Girotto, 31 kilometers to go at Rouvy. Sean Yates, his face blackened by the dust, but still very much in the thick of this action. Benjamin van Itterbeek is there. And that was Hendrik Redant, Van Itterbeek's more illustrious teammate, who's also tapped on. He's come right through the field. That's been a great chase by Redant. So there are still messengers coming across from the remnants of the main field. Whether they've spent too much effort to bridge the gap, they've been chasing for something like 90 minutes or more to get across to this lead group. A very difficult ride indeed. Redant was the rider when Marc Madiot won, Bruce O'Neilly won, because he punctured when he was in the lead by 30 seconds with something like 10 kilometers to go. And Madiot was the first rider to sail past him and went on to victory. He won't forget that. Still the Belgian-Dutch tandem of Herman Frison. No wins for him last year at all. And Adrie van der Poel. Still only a few seconds in it. Well, the only stage win for Van der Poel last year that I can recall was the second stage of the Kellogg's Tour of Britain. That was a photo finish, but he got it, and he finished second overall in the race, rather, as well. But these two seem to have settled down nicely now. Van der Poel anxious to work with him. Remember, as this race approaches the finish, there are about 32 kilometers to go, about 20 miles. They're going to gain in confidence as we look down the road to see if the gap is very much there, and indeed it is. And there's a lot of work to be done now. This is a superb move. Van der Poel may have at last read this one correctly. As he's gone clear, he's caught Herman Frison. Ludwig, who has no friends in that chase group, he's the only rider from Telekom. Seems to be left to do a lot of work. I'm surprised here that the GB team, and Ludwig's had enough, he's swung off. In fact, it wasn't Ludwig, but a teammate that was setting the pace at the front, because that rider who's come up now is Rolf Aldag, so he came across with that group that contained Redant, and so in fact Ludwig does have a teammate up here, and there's the speed at the moment, just short of 50 kilometers an hour, some 30 miles an hour. Dirk de Wolf won Liège-Bastogne-Liège last year, on the left of our picture, just peeping in the Gatorade colours. Gianni Bugno, by the way, not here today. And a look over his shoulder. Van der Poel must be feeling very pleased with what he sees down the road. Not a lot, just the cars. That's a good sign. The commissaires have let in plenty of following cars. Now the gap is growing. And judging by the speed of the leaders, very much on a par with that chase group. If anything, they might be going further ahead. And Rolf Aldag driving along. Not thinking of victory for himself, but knowing that if he can bring back these two leaders, he could well be handing victory to his team leader, Olaf Ludwig. Ludwig only in his 4th season as a professional, and there's the gap, 28 seconds. It's looking extremely promising now. Time is running out for the chase group. I'm surprised that Museo is allowing so much lead here, because they still have some trump cards in that chase group. They could play the double. They've got Ballerini and Museo, one for the sprint, one for the long attack. Ballerini seemingly riding on the form he had 2 years ago. He had a rather poor season last year with no victories at all. But the previous year he finished 5th in Paris-Roubaix, 3rd in the Tour of Lombardy, won a stage in the Tour of Italy, 8th in the Tour of Flanders, and finally rounded it up 12th in the World Cup. In the World Championship, rather. Seaswang, 1,500 metres. Sector 5A. That means we've got a double sector here. We'll be on 5B shortly after we go through a small stretch of tarmac road. Well, if nothing else, Adrie van der Poel will continue to build his rather convincing lead in the cobblestone competition. The first 3 riders score points. And Rolf Aldag is doing a terrific job here as a faithful domestique. Pretty plain now that nobody else is going to get up to these leaders. Anybody that missed the express train that took off at Valenciennes heading for the Forest of Arenberg, I think, apart from Dvur Kralove Safari and that small group that since joined, have now missed the boat. And it looks as though Van der Poel is riding a little bit too well over these cobblestones. He's causing some pain now to Frison. No, Frison was dropping back, I think, so he could see the stones himself and watch out for the big holes that occasionally appear between them. You've got to ride your own race over the cobbles. You can't follow the wheel of the man in front. Superb piece of riding here by Aldag. And Johan Museo is quite clearly saying thank you very much. Sitting there in the slipstream. He's over to the far right of the picture now. Well, the crowd has found this bend of one of the key bends. Many of them having transferred from the forest by car. Sometimes a problem to get through the traffic jams, but they're here anyway. 16 seconds, so this fine riding by Aldag is now causing the gap to close down. And just look how the break also is spread eagle now by the fine pacemaking. Oh, and it's Ballerini who's causing the pain. Dvur Kralove Safari trying to grab his wheel. Franco Ballerini, it had to come from the MGGB boys, it had to. Because one's the stayer, that's the man who'll go for the long one, and that's Ballerini. Museo is the one they'd save for the sprint, and Ballerini is gone, and Dvur Kralove Safari has read it well. Where does this old man of French cycling find it from? He's fought all day to join the leaders. He's up there, and now he's determined. It can only be because he's last year's winner. He's inspired beyond belief. Last year's winner, racing on French soil. Well, not quite soil either, stones. But Ballerini has been riding so well this year. And just look at this. He's coming right up to our camera. Oh, he's coming right up to the two leaders. My goodness me, he's on them. He's gone straight by them. And so too has Dvur Kralove Safari, and Van der Poel has realised it. Frison wants to know if there's any more coming, and there isn't. This is a superb move now. And I think that Van der Poel can't get on the train. Ballerini is still content to make the running. Dvur Kralove Safari is going with him. Well, we're approximately 19 miles from the finish here. It's still a long way to go, but this has gone so quickly off the group. And one has to ask, is it the adrenaline that has caused Dvur Kralove to catch the wheel of Ballerini? Because surely this man hasn't got the legs today. The French said he was their favourites, but I thought that was just a little bit of nepotism. There we saw 25 kilometres to go, so it's just over 15 miles from the finish. Little signal there from Ballerini, and I think it was to call Dvur Kralove through, but he's not going. 15 miles from the finish. Crucial point to put home the attack. Let's split that chase group up behind. Van der Poel has gone back, so too has Frison. I don't know if our French cameras now, because they're going to be a little bit excited by this breakaway, will show us the chase, but they have from the helicopter, and there it is. It's reduced to 4 men. Van der Poel is still in there. Looking down, I'm afraid to say that Sean Yates is gone. I'm sorry about that, because Sean is such a good bike rider, deserves a result in this race. So they might bring these back. We could have 6 leaders very shortly. Now, a chance to see the sloping top tube there on Franco Ballerini's frame. Now, that frame, especially